Hey bookworms, welcome back to my channel and to another review, and today I'll be talking about A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, a book that I admit I've only read it after the movie came out. This is how I actually knew that this book exists, but nonetheless, A Monster Calls is a very short and very sad story about a young boy called Conor who deals with the fact that his mother is dying of cancer. Then one night, the tree in his yard comes to life, becomes a monster who tells Conor that he will continue to come in the following days and to tell Conor 3 stories. And then it's up to Conor to tell him, the monster, the 4th story, and the 4th story is a story that Conor really doesn't want to tell, and he dreads the moment that he will have to tell it to the tree. And I'll let you guys continue to read this book and see where things are going. This is a very sad story. I don't get emotional very easily, but this story was just so tragic and I really felt for Conor. Obviously his mother too, she's very sick, but eventually he is the protagonist. The story is being told from his point of view and he's eventually the one who will have to continue to live eventually without a mother. There's a very strong theme of grief throughout this book, but also there's a very strong message regarding how we deal with grief, both in a private way, you know, the way Conor feels, but also as a society, which is the main message, I think, of this book. This book shows how people sometimes, a lot of times with the best intentions, can deal really bad with those things. I mean, we don't want to talk about these things. We don't want to talk about death. We don't want to talk about sickness. We don't want to talk about grief and loss. But these things are there. And throughout this book, people, once again, with the best intentions, just make Conor feel even worse by dealing with it in a very bad way. And this book has something to say about how sometimes we think that we know how to deal with those things and we tell people, you know, don't talk to him about this, talk to him about that, talk to him in this way and not in a different way because it will be better for this person, when in fact we actually are saying that because it will make us feel a lot better. It has nothing to do with the other person, it has to do with the fact that we don't want to deal with it and we don't want to talk to it. And I think that if you know someone who is going through what Conor is going through, or any sort of similar situation, or any sort of person that you just don't know and you're not sure how to talk to them about this, whether to talk to them about this sort of situation and how to deal with it, I think that A Monster Calls is the book for you. Now let's talk about the monster, its stories, and what is essentially my favorite part in this book, which is the message, which I started talking about, but I will say a little bit more about. So the monster tells Conor his stories, and you know that there is going to be a message in the stories regarding Conor's life, and when the stories start you think, okay, I know where this is going. I've read those books, I've seen those movies, I heard those fairy tales, I know what the message is going to be, and then something happens that changes everything, and each story ends up being very different from what you expect at the beginning and very unexpected. So first of all, I really like the unexpected theme of this book and those stories. I like how they turn out not to be what you expected them to be, but also I love how a bit more realistic they are in the way that they are talking about life. I think that one of my favorite parts is when at the end of one story, Conor gets really upset about the outcome of the story and he gets really angry and he shouts at the tree and tells him, that's not fair. And the monster looks at him and says, what does fair has to do with anything? This is a story from real life, and sometimes in real life things aren't fair. This is not a fairy tale. And I don't want to spoil anything or tell you anything regarding the 4th story that Conor tells the monster, but it deals with, once again, a more realistic approach to this whole issue, and it has a very strong message of sometimes the way we feel about these situations are what other people might think of as inappropriate, but this is the way you feel, and it's okay. And if you want to talk about it, you can talk about it. And if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it. But these things are there. And especially when it comes to the rawest of emotions like sadness and grief and this entire theme of this book, you can't just go to a person and tell him how to feel or that that sort of feeling is inappropriate. It's just the way things are, and we just should accept it and listen if someone tries to talk to us and just be there for a person. So I don't know if it was implied from this entire review or not, but this is not a book for kids. It deals with death and grief in a very mature way. It's not a Roald Dahl kind of a BFG sort of a monster. Young teens, yeah, sure, depends on how emotionally mature they are. And I know a lot of people will probably try to compare it to The Fault in Our Stars. I've never read Fault in Our Stars, so I have no idea how to compare between the two. I do have a feeling that A Monster Calls is not so intense, even though it's not really hard to be less intense than The Fault in Our Stars. Overall, I really enjoyed this book in a very masochistic sort of way of enjoying something that's really, really sad. I like its approach, and I also really like the fact that it was very short. I think it was like precise sort of short. It said what it had to say and just stopped at the right place. So with this warning of beware, very sad about death, I highly recommend this book to everyone as long as they're, adult enough or at least mature enough. And that's it for my review. Thank you very much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it. If you did, please don't forget to click like and show it, and to subscribe to my channel if you dare. I'm here every second Friday. I also have in the description box a bunch of other videos that I thought you guys might like, so feel free to check them out. And until next time, bye bye.